So guys, a few days ago I shared with you this, what I think a beautiful quote from 1821 from the Musical Quarterly magazine and review. A London magazine that reported actually the visit of a conductor from Vienna, the time from Beethoven, Mr. Kiesewetter. And if you haven't seen that video, I will link it here in the info cards and in the description box because it's an important video, and I want to come back on that because I want to stress the important point of this. Diving into something complex as tempo reconstruction or performance practice reconstruction, which is even more complex. I mean, tempo is just one element of a performance reconstruction attempt. It's in a way the easiest one. You either apply the single beat or the WBMP. You take one tick for the note value, or you take two ticks for the note value. But in 1821, to see this guy from Vienna stand in front of the orchestra in London and give this speech about tempo, so much that it got the attention of the musical magazine there that devoted an article and saying, hey, let's invite some musicians here, some older musicians who heard that and said, oh my God, this is kind of rich of rapidity. Those are strong words, huh? It's not like they play a little bit faster, we are disagreeing on tempo, like musicians do. No, this was a statement like, guys, this is wrong. If you want to play Beethoven as he wants to be played, at least as in Vienna was custom at the time, you have to slow down. And it's important to notice that in 1821, that orchestra already was accustomed to play like that. That evolution to speed was already there. That author suddenly realized this call for the metronome that has been there for people like Beethoven and other composers. You had like a kind of pamphlet in 1813 or 15. I don't remember if it was with the first chronometer that Mozart brought or the second one. I think it's the first one in 1813, but don't quote me on this. Anyways, there you had a pamphlet, like an article by important composers. Beethoven was one of those who said, we want that device. We want to be able to set our tempi for the piece. That had a reason. And in 1821, that author apparently just saw the implication. And he wrote this article, guys, composers, give metronome numbers, because I don't see musicians in the future taking much care about you and your intentions. Those metronome numbers, they are so astonishingly fast. So it doesn't match with what was said in this article. The only way to make this story fit, Kiesewetter says to the London Orchestra, play slower. Beethoven giving metronome marks to enable that. And his metronome marks are freaking fast. So it cannot be. Only from that perspective, you see that, and I'm digressing now, but it's an important point that I will make in the future again. A guy like Mozart, he's been taking today for everything. He's been taking for the kind of tradition that slowed everything down, but at the same time, his metronome marks are taken as a proof that everything was faster in his days. Because his metronome marks they're all the same, guys. I mean, metronome marks are not individually. Like you have Czerny metronome system, you have Mozart, you have Bülow, you have Ries, they had you have differences, but they are on a certain line. There was a tradition still that they knew. If we think about what the composer's intention were, or at the minimum, adapted and on their time, but within this kind of feel of authenticity, they had something similar. It's remarkable. Of course, what the public demanded is something else, and that's the important thing. If we go back to the 19th century, people sometimes say, yeah, but how you play, I cannot imagine Liszt playing like that for a Paris public concert. Maybe not. I don't know what Liszt did with his Beethoven performances, but it's not said that it's truly what he had in mind that was the authentic solution, so to say. You had an enormous diversity of performance practice. So if you go to study that's a study on its own. But we can be sure of one fact, that what the performer did in the 19th century was a mixture between what he had in mind on the piece and what he had in mind that the audience would like. And those two things together gave, of course, a performance practice. But that's something completely different from what we do here. We don't study that. And it's important also for you not to mix that. We study what the composer potentially had in mind. And in the 19th century, where this bridge between composer's intention and performer's practice became bigger and bigger, also because the composer was not anymore the performer of his own work, and the performers didn't compose that kind of quality music. So you had a completely new system that in that world, the difference, the bridge, the gap between those two things is big. How big? We cannot know. If Liszt played Beethoven and Schumann for Charles-Marie Widor, I have a video, I will link it here. He heard Liszt practicing or just playing privately, and he was astonished in 1876 or something like that. So pretty late. But he said like the way Liszt played was like unbelievably effective, musically powerful, but almost twice as slow as we today are accustomed to. So there you see a private environment where Liszt, guy coming from Vienna, remember, still probably played like very much close to what he has been picked up when he was younger. So the idea of Liszt and connecting to Wagner, but that's a complete other story. Having changed the entire music system of the entire way of conducting that music, taking it on a slower pace, I don't think that's true. I think the opposite is true. You see in the 1821 quote that there is a rage for rapidity, of virtuosity, taking that music to levels of astonishment. And so there you had the performer as we still have today, as we have in the recordings of the early 20th century, that are pretty impressive technically, but not necessarily, I would say by definition, almost not representing that aspect. And there you have, but that's for another video, you have the Liszt, the Beethoven, Czerny, Wagner Liszt connection. The Wagner is a story on its own. I'm not ready with that, but I'm more and more convinced that they kind of wanted to keep that tradition, that old tradition alive, which was indeed slower. A Wagner piece is very connected to the way of those latest sonatas Alberto played, or the Ninth Symphony or later symphonies. That's like one transition. Wagner was obsessed with the Ninth Symphony. So saying that they changed it to make music slower and more romantic, I think they might have been much closer to the original, authentic Viennese music than and many other places in Europe at the time was the case. So I thought it was important to make this follow-up video. I might do that a little bit more with the sources that we bring, because I sometimes see that the implication of the sources I share with you here on this channel not always is as clear as I would like it to be. I cannot dive into every video where I present a source into all aspects, because on every video with a source will last like 4 or 5 days, something like that. The implications are always enormously, because you change a little thing and everything changes. So, but these follow-up videos of what was important in that particular source, in this case, the 1821 source, might be something that, is important to make. It's a little bit more a conversation between you and me to emphasize really what is important. And again, go back to that video here on the 1821 source, and perhaps also combine it with the video I made on Franz Liszt, the 3 quotes, the charlatan video, as a strong title. But the meaning there is, of course, there was a kind of new way of playing that was expected from musicians by a new audience. Go watch those 2 videos again and reflect upon the thing that it's not a black and white situation, guys. It's not a black and white situation. We will go to some stuff of George Mart and other stuff in the future. It's pretty complex, and there's not so much actually you can say for sure. The only thing in reconstructing performance practice that is absolutely sure are the metronome marks. I know some of you are freaking out when I say that, but it's true. It's just a reference number. And of course, it doesn't mean that you have to play like a metronome. It's just reconstructing those 5 seconds where the composer matched his playing, what he had in mind with his metronome, and he marked the metronome number. We have so many of those. Reconstructing that is the only thing we do. Of course, you have a margin around that. We now stick to that number because you have to learn the system first. You cannot go beyond the system without first just practically implementing that. Okay, enough for that. I'll link the 2 videos here. Perhaps I'll make a playlist of sources, might be interesting for you in the future, for new people here, that they just can click. I have a kind of sources video playlist on the homepage of my YouTube channel, but you know, organizing a YouTube channel is sometimes hard. They should actually give us more possibilities to do so, like a WordPress page or something like that. But that's not for now. So guys, there are a lot of things coming up on this in this it's not a series, but in these kinds of sources that make you understand that 19th century performance practice is different from the composer's intention. It's super important to realize that. It's really important. The only thing we do here on the channel is reconstructing that metronome number and even those 5 seconds in which the composer noted that metronome number down. He can have had another tempo the next day, the afternoon, doesn't matter. The only fact we have is that. So before we start fantasizing, which is interesting by the way, and it's very nice to do, we stick to that one fact, the metronome number, certainly if it's published. So that was it for today. Thanks for watching, subscribing, support us on Patreon, because we need you really to continue on full speed. I'm not just saying that, it's very necessary. This becomes a full-time job, writing the book, playing all that music, receiving here so many interesting guys who want to participate. It all takes time, and yeah, full-time job means, yeah, you know what it means. So thank you for considering that. And for now, thanks for watching again, and we see each other soon again.